Well, welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz, and I will be your host today. I'm so excited that you are joining us. This podcast exists because we believe words matter, and we really believe that our world, your world, my world, our world can be changed through healthy communication. And so we hope that our time in this podcast will challenge you, encourage you to choose words that bring life and to communicate in healthy ways. Well, it is Thanksgiving season. I can't even believe we're already there. Christmas is going to be here sooner than we believe. But since Thanksgiving is here, we thought we would dive in and talk specifically about gratitude and how we can communicate gratitude and how when we communicate gratitude, it affects a person. And so we shouldn't just do this just at Thanksgiving, but since we are in the thankful Thanksgiving type of season, we're going to be able to do that. And so we're going to dive right in. And so today we get to dive in with our guest, Connie Mohawk. And so I want to welcome you to the podcast. Thank you, Connie, so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, could you just tell our audience, our listeners, just a little bit about yourself? Give us where you're from, your family, what you do, those kind of things.
Sure. I am. Uh, I live in rural northwestern Wisconsin. We probably in our county have a population density of about 16 people per square mile. So it's a real rural area, kind of
Wow.
isolated but beautiful.
Uh-huh.
I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Wisconsin. National certified counselor is another credential that I have. I kind of started this as a career change.
Mm.
In my 40s, went back to school and studied clinical psychology and got a job in northern Wisconsin where I kind of always wanted to live. I'm from Wisconsin originally and worked in community mental health for a few years, and then moved to an outpatient counseling clinic. And then in 2020, COVID kind of opened the door for me to open my own practice doing
Mm.
telehealth out of my own home. So I've been doing that on a part-time basis for a couple of years. And then I also teach at a couple of institutions of higher learning up here in our neck of the woods. I teach psychology and substance abuse courses.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, thank you so much for all you do. I am a giant believer in counseling and am so thankful for the counseling that I've been able to experience in my life, but just I know how incredibly important it is. And I know people like you in your profession, oh wow, just thank you for helping people walk through some unbelievable times.
You're welcome.
So as we dive into the topic today, from your perspective, what exactly, or just kind of help us get to that groundwork, what exactly is gratitude?
That's a good question. It's one of those concepts that we're all familiar with, but it's kind
Right.
of hard to articulate what it is. And I kind of like to think of it in three different ways. One is gratitude. It's an emotion.
Mm.
It's an emotion we experience, like when somebody gives us a gift, something that we are happy to receive. We have a rush of positive emotion that we could call gratitude. We can also look at gratitude as an expression, either a behavioral, something we do that expresses gratitude, or maybe a facial expression that expresses gratitude. And those expressions will typically come out of something happening to us and that feeling of gratitude that we have, or they might be just something we initiate intentionally.
Hmm.
Uh, but the part of gratitude that I think is most powerful is the disposition of gratitude, and
Mm.
by that I mean it's more of a akin to a personality trait or a character trait, and it's more than just doing things that express gratitude. It's being a person who is characterized by gratitude, who sees life and works through a lens of gratitude, and
Mm.
maybe does life through kind of a mindset and a way of gratitude. And I think that's where gratitude can be really powerful, when we have a high dispositional gratitude.
Mm. Boy, that's so good. I heard a speaker years ago talk about, their life kind of changed when in the morning, instead of, doing anything else, they put their feet on the floor and they just started with, kind of moments of gratitude. And to be able to start their day off like that, just really, really changed them.
Mhm.
From your standpoint as a counselor, as you listen to people, guide them, help them, and as we look at 2022 when it comes to gratitude, are we at the top of the charts in people expressing gratitude? Are we are we kind of a little bit lower? Where is it in people's lives, would you say?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on where you look and who you ask. And I don't know any research that kind of says, oh, as a society, where
Mm,
are we as a grateful, in gratitude? But as a therapist, of course, I work with a lot of people who struggle with
mm,
depression, anxiety, other difficulties. And those difficulties, what comes with that a lot of times is negativity. And so, a person who is depressed and negativity is a part of that, negativity tends to, um, just kind of, it can bias the brain
mm,
to the point where um, negative things that happen stick like Velcro, and positive things that happen tend to kind of slide off like Teflon. The brain just becomes so bias toward negativity that it's hard for the individual to acknowledge, embrace, own, even really notice positive things that happen to them. I've worked with clients that have had a lot of negative experiences in their life. And because of their focus on the negative, it tends to bias their brain so that if you ask them, what are some things you're grateful for? It is really difficult for them to identify things.
mm,
And so that bias tends to even make it so that if neutral things happen or even positive things happen, it's easy to identify or to interpret those things as negative. And so that makes it really hard to be grateful if you can't identify things in your life to be grateful for and thankful for. It's hard to be a grateful person and to express gratitude and to reap the benefits of it. So folks that are in that situation, I think, really struggle and lack gratitude in their life.
yeah.
Other folks, though, that I mean, it works the other way. If we have more of a disposition towards gratitude, and we, like you said, that person you mentioned, getting up in the morning and gratitude is the first thing they think about in the day, that can work toward a positive bias in your brain, where the things that happen to us that are positive stick like Velcro, and the negative things roll off. And then you've got a higher dispositional gratitude and just are a more grateful person. And that comes out in your behaviors, in your language, your
Hmm.
communication, all sorts of ways.
I mean, just that analogy, I feel like could be the greatest, meme. We live in this meme, GIF world or GIF or however we word it, but just the negative is like Velcro, and it's just so true. I mean, it's especially leaders or communicators who are paid to communicate, or people who are up front, or I mean, really whatever place of life. It's just amazing how we could get 100 positive things said to us, but that one,
Mm-hmm.
it just holds on like Velcro. That analogy is just fantastic.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it is a helpful analogy. And what's interesting is that gratitude can be kind of an antidote toward that negative bias to
Oh.
help change that cognitive structure so that we are more on a positive side, and the positive things are what are sticking like Velcro. So when I work with clients, I try to help them reframe situations to see them in a more positive light. Something happens that we interpret as negative. Well, what opportunities might this present? How might you grow through this? There's a lot of possibilities for things to be grateful for, even in situations that are challenging to us or
Hmm.
that we might think of as negative. And so when we're able to do that, we start making some different associations in the brain, build some new neural connections.
Mm.
And the more we focus on those new neural connections, what we focus on, we give power to. And those neural connections become stronger and stronger and stronger, so that our thoughts automatically start to go to that kind of thinking.
Hmm.
And so we can actually rewire the brain in a way that helps us to just be more positive in general. And so gratitude helps us get there. And then being positive also helps us to be more grateful. So it's a nice, positive kind of a thing that we can get going.
Wow. I'm kicking myself because normally I bring a journal. I mean, there's already so many things that you've said. I'm like, okay, I got to go back and listen so I can write that down. I mean, that's just such a powerful beginning to this conversation. So when it comes to expressing gratitude in our daily lives and flipping that, especially we're in this holiday season, we're gonna be seeing family and coworkers maybe we haven't seen in a while. So how can we? What are some ways that we can express gratitude? Every day, kind of some practical ways, especially for our family, friends, and coworkers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we can do that by expressing gratitude and being intentional about that, looking for opportunities, noticing things, and just speaking up or expressing appreciation to people. Um, but I think other things can help us as well in terms of developing that dispositional gratitude. Like you mentioned, that getting up in the morning when your feet hit the floor, first thing you're thinking about, what do I have to be grateful for? And if we can start to um, just kind of live life through a lens of gratitude
Mm,
where things like seeing life as a gift, seeing our resources as gifts that have been given to us, that we are responsible for stewarding well, whether those are natural resources, financial resources, relationships, and people in our lives,
hmm
seeing the people in our lives as gifts to us, and even the problem people that we always seem to have in our lives, seeing
Sure.
them as gifts to us, and being able to look at life in a way that is, how can, how is this a gift to me? How can I steward this well as a gift? How can I
Mm,
value the people in my life? How can I honor my relationships, protect and nurture my relationships with people? Those are all kind of a gratitude lens of that. And how can I, my resources are a gift to me, as opposed to seeing ourselves as owners and things are there to do with as we please. And we that kind of fosters entitlement as
hmm
opposed to gratitude. If we see life as a gift and all that we have received as a gift,
mm,
I think then we tend to become more of a person of gratitude, and we tend to live life more through a gratitude lens. And so that can also help us,
wow.
um, kind of big picture, help us in terms of expressing gratitude to other people. So, it kind of works both ways. Being a grateful person will automatically kind of will tend to express that. And then we can also be very intentional about it, and look for ways and to express gratitude and notice what people do for us.
hmm
Either through just regular gifts that were given at Christmas time or whatever, or just gifts of service, gifts of time, gifts of presence
hmm
in terms of people being with us, all of that thing, letting people know how we're impacted by that, uh, is are all suggestions I would make.
Mm. So why do people sometimes? I've been there. We've all been there. But why do we get into this place where it's hard for us to express gratitude, or maybe we run into someone and there's that internal voice that says you should take 30 seconds and tell that person what you're grateful for them, or thankful, but we don't. Sometimes we just, hey, I don't have enough time, or they know. But what holds us back from you know sharing those things, or expressing that gratitude more often?
Mm. Well, I can think of a few things that would hinder that, Jason. It takes energy for
Mm,
one thing. And so, if we're really feeling spent and our reserves are low, then it just might be too much energy for us to be able to do something like that in that moment. Also, I think we tend to underestimate the power of our expressing appreciation to other people.
mm,
We think, well, we it doesn't really matter if I say anything or not,
right.
because I mean, sometimes we just minimize that, and so a lot of times, we won't say something, and we miss an opportunity to really impact somebody, because a lot of times just a simple word of appreciation means so much to another person. I remember when my son was in middle school and he was in social studies, which was a class he typically did not like.
Mm.
And this teacher, from whatever she was doing, he just really liked the class. And so I just jotted her a little note saying, my son really enjoys your class and he's never really liked this subject. And I just want you to know that, whatever you're doing is really working with him. And she was so impacted by my
Wow.
expression of thanks that she wrote me a thank you note saying thank you for your thank you note. So I'm like,
I love
wow,
it.
that seemed like a small thing to me. But it was really encouraging to her to hear from a parent. And so I think a lot of times we don't realize that. And so we might just say, we just kind of write it off.
Hmm. Wow, that's so good. It's some, even those little moments of sending that handwritten card or sending the text. We talk ourselves out of, but boy, they can really deposit a boost in someone else's life, or be able to help fill their bucket to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so
Yeah, we can
important.
never really know how much something like that will impact another person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never know.
I love sending thank you cards. It's kind of been my my pattern for a long time. The problem is, I you need an interpreter to read them, and so I do my best, to do it. People will send me a text. I got your thank you card. I don't know what it said, but thank you.
That's one
Yeah.
downfall
Right.
handwritten.
Right. Okay. So let's shift for a second. Let's talk about the person who their emotional tanks are just empty. They're exhausted. They've been through it at work, or they're going through kind of a personal crisis. Like, how do they get up the energy, get up the strength, to be able to express gratitude in their life, to communicate it to others, or to communicate it to themselves, just with the place that they're in, being so drained or exhausted.
Yeah. And we find ourselves in that situation quite a bit, I think. And so, well, finding ways to kind of refill the tank in general is important whenever we feel depleted. And so, self care is really important,
Mm.
um, and that sort of thing. And one thing that I think gratitude can help us to refill that tank is when we receive um, expressions of gratitude from other people. I mean, I've done a lot of volunteer work, especially when my kids were in school, and I kept an awful lot of thank you notes. And I was looking through them last night, and I'm like, wow, this is really encouraging to me. And it was really building up to me to go back and take a look at some of those notes that I've received. And so gratitude really kind of
Oh wow.
helped me with that.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of us being able to express gratitude, yeah, when our tanks are filled and we lack that energy, or it's that can be a challenge. But I also think that when we do something for somebody else, that can also help fill our tanks. There's
Mm.
something about giving and seeing that you are having a positive impact on somebody else. It can really help build that up in ourselves. So even simple things of gratitude, and it doesn't have to take a lot of energy to say thank you to somebody
Right.
for something. Can also kind of the feedback we might get from that, or the person's appreciation of hearing that from us, can also build us up as well. So I think that can be helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing. I feel like just in the last week or two, I've, talked with a few people who they're just in that place of life. And, I've been there, and, when you work through it, you can look back and go, okay, I mean, even just what you said, just start with those practical things, because they can, start to help you, move forward and, be able to do it. It's just so incredibly important. We're coming into Thanksgiving. Christmas is around the corner. We'll be seeing some, family members who we haven't seen in a while, quite possibly. And for some of them, those family members, it might be difficult, to see, maybe give us some tips or some thoughts about, communicating gratitude, with those family members that, are going to be kind of difficult, or have those difficult conversations, around the holidays.
That can be a challenge for sure. Um, Sometimes I think we have to kind of be creative in our ways of thinking about what we're grateful for. And in a situation that might not be ideal, we may have to, kind of look past the obvious.
Mm,
We can thank people for, even if we receive a gift that we didn't particularly like, it doesn't really match our interest or something like that. We can
right.
still thank people for thinking of us. We can thank people for going, they've gone to the trouble of choosing a gift. They've gone to, to remember us and to do that. I mean, we can be grateful for their intentions that way. So sometimes we need to kind of look for that sort of thing, that might help. In terms of just ways to effectively express gratitude, I think a couple of things we can do are to tailor the expression of gratitude toward the recipient.
Mm,
So, for example, somebody might really like to have something written out, like a note or a card or a letter, or something that they can then keep and treasure and reread later. People that maybe have a love language of words of affirmation
mm,
might like that. Somebody who likes quality time, maybe to take them and have lunch together and express gratitude verbally that way. It can, so knowing kind of how a person, receives that sort of thing might be helpful in just considering that, being thoughtful about that.
mhm,
Also, in terms of other things too, I mean, my generation, I'm a tail end baby boomer, and we're used to written stuff.
right.
And so, grandma and grandpa might prefer a written note to a text or something done that way, whereas younger folks are just fine with,
Mm,
things through social media or text. So you might want to consider something like that. And then the other thing that I think can be really helpful in expressing gratitude in a powerful way is to try to go beyond acknowledgement to impact.
oh,
I have, like I said earlier, I volunteered a lot while my kids were in school. And one of the things that I did was direct as a volunteer our middle school jazz band at the middle school where my kids went. And at the end of the first year I did this, the students all signed something to express gratitude to me. And there's one student that what he wrote, I've remembered, and this is more than 25 years. And he wrote, "Now I love jazz thanks to you." And that one sentence was
right.
just touched me so much
Oh,
because it showed impact. It wasn't just, thank you, appreciation, and I appreciated all of that, but impact really, really was powerful to the point where I remember that sentence and that student all this time later. So if we can go beyond just thank you for this, I will enjoy using it, or
hmm,
thank you for this, whatever, to to think a little bit more deeply, connect more with how did this, impact me? And obviously, some gifts lend themselves to this better than others. But
hmm.
when we can, and to the extent we can be specific and talk about impact in our gratitude expressions, I think that makes them more powerful.
Wow. Wow, that is. And then amazing just the power of words. I mean, 25 years
Mm-hmm.
later and it's still it's just another good reminder of why words matter so
Yep.
much. So much.
Yep.
Okay, anything you would at the end of this conversation, anything that you've been thinking about? Boy, I wish I would have threw that in about gratitude or communicating gratitude as we kind of finish up our talk here.
I think I covered most of it. I think the most important points that, if I were to reiterate them, would be in order to kind of develop a higher level of dispositional gratitude, which I
Yes.
think is what is really powerful. And we really didn't talk about the benefits to gratitude. Maybe that's what I can mention real
Yes.
quick,
Yes.
Jason. Research has shown that gratitude has some pretty powerful benefits,
Mm,
whether that's experiencing and feeling gratitude, what lights up in the brain when we have thoughts of gratitude or we imagine a situation that kind of evokes those feelings of gratitude, as well as expressions of gratitude and things like Oh, keeping a gratitude journal, counting our
Oh.
blessings, writing things down. Those kinds of interventions can also just kind of help with well-being, feelings of well-being and happiness. And research shows that people who are grateful tend to have better physical and psychological health. They
Mm.
sleep better, they sleep longer. Increased happiness and life satisfaction, increased vitality and optimism and empathy. It helps our relationships. There's less focus on materialism, decreased envy, decreased likelihood of suffering burnout. So,
Wow. Wow.
gratitude is a powerful, powerful thing.
Wow.
And if we can harness that, we're just in a better place in life, and we're in a better place to be with people, and our relationships, our communication with them
Mm.
will all benefit from developing and in gratitude. And it's a pretty simple thing to do in terms of practices and just kind of ways of thinking that we can change and we can work on to cultivate that, become more people that are more characterized by gratitude. And there's a lot of benefit to reap from that.
Mm. Wow. Well, I got so caught up in a couple of your stories, I missed that benefits question. I'm so glad that you brought that up because wow. That is so powerful. I can't thank you enough for your time here today. Before you leave, I thought we're doing kind of a fun thing with our guests lately. We're just asking some rapid fire questions, and so give us a couple nuggets on this. But what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's starting out in your career? Professional counselor, they're starting off. Is there a piece of advice that you'd give them?
Main thing I would say would be to get therapy yourself. Go through the
Mm.
process. I had a very powerful experience in therapy, which is what kind of propelled me into a midlife career change into that field. It was so powerful for me. I thought, wow, if that can do that for me, and if I can do that for other people, that would be really cool.
That's
And
amazing.
so it's important for therapists, I think, to, well, first of all, it helps you get healthy. And the healthier we are, the more we can help other people be healthy. And it also is helpful just to know what it's like on the other side of the dynamic, and
Yes.
to know what people experience when they're working with us. So that's the I think going through therapy myself was my best preparation for being a good therapist.
I love that. Question number two: is there a book or two that you'd recommend to our audience listening? Is there a couple of books that have just stuck out that you're like, this is my go-to? You've got to pick this one up.
Well, I have a couple books that I would recommend that I've run across over the years that I've recommended to people that I think are really helpful. One is The Whole Brain Child by
Mm.
Daniel Siegel. He's a neuroscience researcher, does a lot with mindfulness, and I've used a lot of his principles both with my clients and with my students. And it's a great book for parents or anyone working with children. But the principles in there are also good for adults. So
Mm.
even if you read it for yourself, and it talks a lot about how to get different parts of the brain talking to each other so that there's more integration in the brain, which just leads to a lot better mental health.
Mm.
And then anything by Brene Brown, who is a researcher in shame resilience, vulnerability, and courage. I thought it was just me, but it wasn't, is a good place to
Mm.
start. I would recommend her books highly.
We'll make sure we put those in the show notes. Okay, last question. What's one thing you're looking forward to about 2023?
I can't identify a certain event or a certain thing, but I will say that I'm very excited about the future. I
Mm.
think that this decade of my life will be the most fruitful, influential, and impactful that I've had. And so I'm really looking forward to
Wow.
2023 and just seeing how that unfolds and what that looks like.
Well, Connie, this has been great. And I'm already thinking like we have to have you on again because I already
Oh,
have so many thoughts and questions about we're doing this. And so, is there any social media or website that you want us to point people to, or anything that we can tell people where to find you on the web?
I have a website, but I don't do anything with it. I'm really not out in social media a whole lot. Maybe that's
Okay,
something I need to consider and change. So,
no worries.
my practice is Solid Ground Counseling. And so I do have a website at solidground-counseling.com. And so if somebody wanted to get a hold of me, that there's a way you can kind of
That's
connect
great.
through that. And so that would be fine.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, taking the time. This was so rich. I know it will help so many people. We cannot wait for this to be published. And so before we sign off this episode of the podcast, we just want to remind you that if you are a leader, you have someone, you're someone with influence, you've recognized maybe that there's a lid on your leadership or your communication skills, and either that's one-on-one or on a team or from a stage or from behind a camera, and you need some coaching. We would love to talk to you about coaching. For us at Speak with People, it just starts with a simple phone call. And so you can email us at jason@speakwithpeople.com, and we'll get you information about our next step with coaching. And we just can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast, for listening, for being a part of this community. Again, we exist because words matter, and our world, your world can be changed through healthy communication. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.